for activism, for freedom for the users of computing, there are many things that we have to fight against. There are many different threats to our freedom in a digital society, so I can't just give you one or two things. We have to escape from proprietary software and from software as a service so that we have control over our computing. We have to put the brakes on digital surveillance. Now, when people complain about the amount of data that's being collected, the usual suggestion is to put limits on the use of the data. That's totally, hopelessly inadequate, because those limits tend to make it very painless for the state to get that data and use it for whatever it wants. And and not only that, officials who have access to the data often, officials who have access to some data about people have a history of using that data for personal purposes. There's a practice called running a plate for a date. A cop sees an attractive woman drive by, so he notes down her license plate and looks up her address and gives her a visit, hoping he can get her into bed somehow. Well, they're not supposed to do this, but they do. It's perhaps not the worst thing that cops regularly do. Attacking people and lying about it is standard procedure. But the point is, the driver's license records are collected and they're supposed to be used for certain purposes, but the state employees who have access to these records will use these records for personal purposes too. It's almost impossible to prevent this. So the collecting more information about people generally means it will be abused by the state and by individuals. And others very often get access to it too. The state of computer security being as bad as it is, very likely that data will fall into the hands of lots of others who will then be able to use it however they wish. The only way to prevent data from being abused is not to collect it. Therefore, the only way to prevent a tremendous increase in the general level of surveillance is to limit the data we collect. The organizations that concern themselves with this are too timid. They generally suggest measures that they think there's a chance of getting enacted in the next few years. That is a fundamental strategic mistake, because those measures are hopelessly inadequate. They're obviously inadequate, and they can't inspire passion unless it's passion of people who are partly misleading themselves. And they can't inspire passion unless it's passion by people who are partly misleading themselves. So we've got to propose what really needs to be done, even if there's no chance of getting it enacted in the next 4 years, because that way there will be some chance of getting it done in the next 30 years. Another threat to our freedom comes from censorship, which is related to the tendency of people to depend on massive internet services for what they do, because all those internet services apply censorship. Apple is a big example. When people install software in a PC, well, it's probably proprietary and doesn't respect their freedom at all. But at least they could install whatever program that's available that they want to. But Apple pioneered a new form of digital handcuffs in general purpose computers, namely censorship of applications. The iThings, those monsters that Apple produced, are designed so that users can only install the software that they get from Apple's App Store. And Apple practices arbitrary censorship of those applications, can reject something for any reason or no reason. And what does this mean? So we've got to go back to the internet as it was 10 years ago. An internet where people set up websites and other kinds of sites, because the internet is not limited to use of the World Wide Web, and then put in them what they wished. And they didn't need to get somebody else's approval for what they were going to publish. Well, another threat comes from the war on sharing. You see, the internet is useful to a large extent because it makes possible sharing, that is, distributing copies of things. Now, sharing should be legal for any published work. You should be legally allowed to make copies of it and distribute them over the internet or any other way. That's digital technology in general is beneficial to a large extent because it makes possible easy sharing. Now, when something is easy and it's good, people do it. People share. People use digital technology to share. But the publishers don't want people to be able to share. So they have perverted our technology. Over a period of 20 years, they have been perverting our technology with malicious functionalities, digital handcuffs, the functionalities designed to stop people from copying various kinds of works. DVD players are all built with malicious functionality to stop people from copying. Modern PCs are mostly built with malicious functionality. The video signal in between the computer itself and the monitor is sent in a secret encrypted format for the specific purpose of stopping people from making a video recording. So here, extremely common kinds of computer hardware have been perverted. So they're not any longer the user's servant. They are now the user's jailer. But they didn't stop there. They then made it illegal to distribute software that can decrypt this secret format or any of these secret formats that are used to restrict people. Any kind of software to break the digital handcuffs that they're putting on people is legally censored in the U.S., a law in which the U.S. government took the side of the publishing companies against the public. Of course, unjust laws like this don't deserve to be obeyed. They have no moral authority. They just reflect and demonstrate the extent to which our government has been corrupted.